This is why Mercedes will suffer by the new porpoising rules of FIA. The porpoising problem is likely to stick in the F1 world for a longer period. Things have gotten to the extent of drivers pushing for changes up to the governing body of the F1 FIA. However, the hopes of FIA intervening to change anything regarding this matter were low, because the teams have one solution available, and that is to raise the ride height. However, yesterday FIA announced that intervention regarding reducing the porpoising on safety grounds will happen. What are these interventions that the FIA will implement? Also, is it possible that teams that have porpoised the most, such as Mercedes, will be hurt severely by these rules? That would be a real kickback for them, considering the fact that they were the main ambassadors in the paddock regarding the porpoising problem. Want to find out more about the new regulations that FIA will implement and how they'll hurt Mercedes? Stick with us and we'll provide these answers to you. So, an official request was made by the Grand Prix Drivers Association, which president is George Russell, to FIA at their regular briefing on Friday in Baku. This request was done after several drivers have suffered neck and back issues on the bumpy circuit, one of which was the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. The Brit has suffered badly from this problem during the race too, so even if he was exaggerating the problem, he has managed to receive the compassion from the FIA. Apart from him, his teammate George Russell and Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz Jr. have also expressed increased stiffness in their neck and back area, as both of them raised concerns early in the season about the long-term effects of porpoising. With that being said, FIA has decided to intervene by issuing a technical directive to teams that reference both short and long-term measures. But the rules won't apply to Montreal, a track that has a very similar nature to Baku regarding the main straight part and the bumpiness due to it being a national park when the GP isn't held. This weekend, FIA will focus more on observation and data gathering, a process that will help them to make the new regulative more objective and precise. The official statement of FIA was released yesterday, as they said, following the 8th round of this year's FIA Formula One World Championship, during which the phenomenon of aerodynamic oscillations, porpoising of the new generation of F1 cars, and the effect of this during and after the race on the physical condition of the drivers was once again visible, the FIA, as the governing body of the sport, has decided that in the interests of safety, it is necessary to intervene to require that the teams make the necessary adjustments to reduce or to eliminate this phenomenon. FIA has played this in a very good professional manner, as they are playing the safety card, mainly on the grounds of drivers' concentration. The unanimous support of teams regarding these changes is not required, and the FIA has also noted that the intervention was made after consultation with its doctors in the interests of the safety of the drivers. In a sport where the competitors are routinely driving at speeds in excess of 300 kilometers an hour, it is considered that all of a driver's concentration needs to be focused on their task, and that excessive fatigue or pain experienced by a driver could have significant consequences should it result in a loss of concentration. In addition, the FIA has concerns in relation to the immediate physical impact on the health of the drivers, a number of whom have reported back pain following recent events, added FIA to their statement. But what exactly has FIA intervened with? There are two major things that the association has decided to implement for future races. The first one is close scrutiny of the planks and skids, both in terms of their design and the observed wear. The second one is a definition of a metric based on the car's vertical acceleration that will give you a quantitative limit for an acceptable level of vertical oscillations. The exact mathematical formula for this metric is still being analyzed by the FIA, and F1 teams have been invited to contribute to this process. What this means is that the FIA will measure the porpoising with a mathematical formula with which they'll be able to understand just how much a car porpoises. Which brings us to the next part of this video. Is there a chance that these rules could go against what teams have been fighting for? More precisely, will the rules decrease the speed of the cars that porpoise the most just for safety reasons? This is raising another yet interesting question. If the answer to the previous one is yes, then is the porpoising problem worth fixing? At this point, anything that will help Mercedes solve the porpoising problem will be seen as a much-needed push in the right direction. This is why Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner has said that any rule change to intervene in this problem would be unfair to those teams that were not suffering from the problem, such as the Red Bull. But it seems like the rules will actually hurt Mercedes due to the fact that there isn't any application directly to the design or changes in regulations that are already in place. To explain this more clearly to you, at the Canadian GP, the FIA will gather telemetry data and undertake a closer technical evaluation of the cars and their behavior, just to understand the impact of porpoising. With that data in the system, a strict G-force or frequency limit will then be imposed on cars out on track. This will be done to ensure that drivers won't have to suffer from problems like Lewis Hamilton did in Baku. This is where things get interesting. With this addition to the new rules, the FIA is simply telling the F1 teams that if your car bounces more than it should, then you should raise the ride height and reduce the porpoising by itself. So yes, Hamilton and Russell won't endure much from the porpoising phenomenon, but they will suffer on race weekends due to the increased drag and decreased downforce of their rides. If an F1 car fails to comply with the metrics, more specifically if the setup is too aggressive and the cars are bouncing again a lot, FIA would force them to make changes to dial it out. So it's not like the FIA has added a new regulation to reduce porpoising on the car setups that are already figured out. To put things in an easier manner, the FIA has simply set out a metric system that won't allow the drivers to porpoise as much. If they do, then they have to do the sacrifices of lifting their ride height so that they could continue with the season. Why isn't this hurting Red Bull? Well, the team has already figured out the porpoising level. This means that they could ride the car as low as they can, with the condition of staying inside of the limits set by the metric data. This shouldn't be a problem for the team, because as of now, it seems like the team's genius engineer, Adrian Newey, has fixed the problem that teams are struggling with so much that they had to mix up FIA in the intervention. Apart from Mercedes, the Ferrari team could also take a huge blow by these rules. If they fail to comply with the metrics, then the team would have to move the car out of its ideal setup window. This would mean that they'll be much slower compared to their main rivals, Red Bull. On top of that, the reliability issues that the Italian team is currently struggling with are a serious threat to their championship aspirations. All in all, you'll have a team that could go fast from a championship one to a mediocre one, fighting for P2 or P3. However, hope for changes from the 2023 season and beyond has risen, as the main concern raised by Russell was for the seasons that are yet to come. One idea that was shared directly with the FIA was the adding of active suspension technology, or even making mass dampers legal again in the sport. Mercedes are the ones that suffer the most from this lack of technology, as the team has been dominant throughout the past 8 years. Now it seems like it cannot find the right solution to a phenomenon that is costing them too much on the track. So it seems like Christian Horner's initial worries have been eradicated. The FIA's new rules and regulations will just force the teams to sacrifice lap time and performance for this phenomenon. Mercedes played their cards right, but they didn't expect that the FIA will be conducting these rules. This hurts them and Ferrari badly, because the solution of raising the car ride was always there. They were hoping for something else, such as the resurgence of the active suspension system. However, as we mentioned earlier, no matter how much other teams rebel about the porpoising being such a big problem, the fact that there are F1 teams that have fixed this problem is enough for their argument to sink in the water. What do you think about the new regulations? Do you think that if Mercedes and Ferrari are forced to sacrifice lap time just to allow their drivers a more comfortable ride will be a season-over move? Or do you think that teams will somehow find a solution and bring the best out of their cars and challenge Red Bull, who is now on a more dominant pattern compared to these two teams? Let us know in the comments, as we'd like to hear from you. Stay safe until our next video.